What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Adamas Project, episode 4. As you can tell, a change of scenery today. We are live in Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship game between Michigan and Purdue. It should be a blowout, God willing. It should be a go blue blowout, but we're in town for the game, and I decided this would be a phenomenal opportunity to interview my good buddy, Mitchell Brown. We did gymnastics together at the University of Michigan, and I think he's got a pretty cool story, and I'm a big believer that normal, everyday people have just as many lessons to share, just as many interesting stories as some of the other celebrities that we might interview on a show like this. You don't have to be in a position of influence or some crazy celebrity to be able to share the lessons learned from your story, from your life. And he's got a really interesting story, so we're going to dive into that today. Mitchell, first question for you. What is the elevator pitch in 60 seconds? Who is Mitchell Brown? Who's talking to the people today?
Well, dude, I think you nailed it. It's just like, I'm just another dude. Been blessed growing up with certain opportunities with gymnastics, obviously, and great people in my life. But, at the end of the day, like, there's not really anything special, about me. Just another guy going about life, trying to do it all the best I can, not waste it, be intentional, but also not take it too seriously at the same time. And, again, just I think just someone who likes to set goals, that likes to be on an adventure, so that's the little elevator pitch there.
I like it. So take me all the way back to more or less the beginning, right? Because there's been a lot of transition periods in your life. I want to talk about the first transition period, which was going from, high school, living in Indy more or less your entire life, training at the club level, and then going into one of the biggest colleges in the country, D1 athlete, right? There's a huge transition there. I know there's a lot of stuff we can get into in terms of finding yourself. There was some faith stuff that happened during that time where you kind of waffled back and forth between different ideologies of how you wanted to live while you were in college, the people you wanted to surround yourself with. Yeah. And then let's start there. And then I know there's another big transition that you recently went through, quitting your job, starting a business, becoming an entrepreneur. So there's a lot to get into, but take us back to high school, jumping into college. What was that like for you, and what was the most challenging part of it? Because I know for me, going from the environment that I was in, where I'd never left that environment before, and then going to a completely new environment with full freedom, by the way. That's the thing, is I'd never been out of the old environment, and then I got into a new place where I was the one who in charge all of a sudden. That's a lot, I think, for an 18-year-old to handle. And then you're put on a sports team. You get shot to the top of the food chain in college. Like, there's a lot going on there. What's the most challenging part of that for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one thing that was really difficult for me is that I grew up, and like I said, I mean, you know it. Like, you live at the gym, basically. It's like school. You got your school friends, but then, like, most of your real friends, your truest friends are the guys that you're training with every day. And so I think for me, one of the hardest things was leaving that behind, right? Because, like, even on the days where I didn't want to be in the gym, I didn't want to practice, I didn't want to push myself, like, I still had guys there and my coaches that gave me a reason to be there. And somehow still made it enjoyable. You know what I mean? Even on the days where I was tired or something bad happened at school earlier in the day, just in a bad mood, these guys just had a way of turning that around. And so, I think for sure one of the hardest things for me was then, like you said, being in such a different environment. What, I was used to growing up, went to a small school, small town, and then all of those relationships being left behind in a way. It's hard to really maintain those as well as you do when you spend 20 hours with people every week. And then, just it being a totally new environment, new training environment, all new coaches, all new teammates, trying to figure out where you fit in, to all of that. And I think gymnastics-wise, one of the toughest things was that, I was put in Kurt's group, which I love Kurt to death. You know what I mean? Incredible guy. But he gives his athletes, and his group a lot of autonomy.
Freedom, yeah.
Yeah, over their workouts, their exercises, what they do, how they train, and that's not how I was coached growing up. I had 3 coaches. One of them was very much like, this is what we're doing today. And sometimes he would hit us with a 2-on-6.
Explain what that.
So a 2-on-6 basically is miserable because it means that you're hitting all 6 events, so all 6 different events in gymnastics, and then you're doing 2 routines on each of those events in one practice. So you basically get there, you get stretched out, you do some quick conditioning to get warmed up, and then it's like 1 or 2 turns per event, and then you're doing your routines, and you're just exhausted by the end of it. So we would do those 2 a week sometimes, and it was it was, and the balance came in with my other 2 coaches then, because I would straight up go to them and I'd be like, are we really about to do another 2-on-6, this week? Like, all of our hands are fried, we've got rips, we're sore, at that point, injuries weren't as big of a deal, across the board. When you get to college, it's like everybody's got something. But, so it was like, but definitely had a lot of guidance, and then getting to college and having a coach that, has kind of has a different philosophy. I mean, I think that's why my junior and senior year, you were my coach, like unofficially, but like you were 100% my coach, and
It worked out okay.
yeah, no, it did, dude, and those were, on the team, like my freshman and sophomore year were tough, just in terms of, my performance in the gym, the way I felt that I wasn't necessarily developing, in the gym. And then, like you mentioned, like there's just a lot that goes on in college life-wise that I was dealing with at that time. And, it was hard not having, my people. I think I'm someone that needs, with some people, needs a bit of time to warm up and really like be trusting of someone, to open up and just feel comfortable. So, and I don't think I got that until like my junior, senior year, in a lot of ways, just with everything going on. So that was the biggest thing, man, is just, I think I realized, and that's why I love being back in Indy now, because I get to still hang out, with my coaches and see them on a weekly basis. And, just 2 great role models in my life, people that cared about me a ton growing up and cared about seeing me be successful and reaching my potential. And, that's, you need people like that in your life. And I think even just now, even with what I'm doing now, they're constantly, just asking how it's going and supporting me now in that. So, that was for sure the hardest thing. It was my people.
So let me ask you this, because I feel like a big through point in everything that you just talked about is change, right? You talked about how your friend group was changing, your coaching staff was changing, your environment was changing, your level of freedom was changing, your physical, geographical location was changing. Everything kind of changed for you in an instant when you went to Michigan, right? Mm-hmm. And then what I think is interesting about that is I think you're somebody who is unafraid to reinvent yourself. And I say that because obviously that first change was not necessarily voluntary. It's like, okay, you want to come here and do gymnastics? Here's all the change that comes with it, and you don't have a say about it. Like, it's just going to change, right? Mm-hmm. But then halfway through college, you went through another big shift, and that was when you started getting into AIA, Athletes in Action. You started getting more into your faith. I think you turned away a little bit from some of the external influences that were around us in that environment. And then you graduated college, come back here, quit your job, start your own business. So I feel like you're the type of person who's able to attack change. And a lot of people get crippled and paralyzed by change, and they have a fear of change, not necessarily recognizing that change most often is a prerequisite for progress. So how do you go about creating that mindset of just, it's a part of life, it's gonna happen, we got to get through it one way or another, let's go, instead of kind of pulling back and withdrawing from the situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you just said it right there. Like, change is inevitable. It's a part of life. It's going to be present wherever you go, and I'll say, it's funny that you view me that way as someone that handles it well, because like I don't always feel that way internally.
Well, flowers don't pick themselves.
Right, right. So, it's one of those things though that I think it's definitely something that through those experiences I've gotten the opportunity to work on, like handling change. So, for example, when I first moved back here, quit my job, was starting this thing, that was massive, like a massive change, right? Same thing when I, kind of had, a faith revelation and college and stuff. And again, I'm night and day different person from who I was, 2-3 years ago even. But it's, I think it's just facing it head on. You know what I mean? Like you have to be conscious of it and be conscious to make the decision of like, I'm not going to let this, sit here and bring me down.
Yeah.
Right? Like whatever it is, like when I came back here and I was starting this, everybody's asking, how's your business going?
Yeah.
And for anybody that's done it out there, it's like usually those first few months are tough. It's like I wanted to be sitting there saying, oh, we're washing things nonstop. We're,
Tell them what you do real quick.
Yeah, I should probably jump into that. So, basically about a year ago now, my dad and I, were just talking, and we were talking about like a trash chute in my apartment building, and it smelled worse than a lot of things I've smelled in my life. And we just got on this whole conversation about how it needs to be cleaned and how you do it, and turns out there's a way to pressure wash them and clean them that way. And from that point, I mean, we just kept talking about everything you could pressure wash. And then I started getting fed videos on YouTube of, I washed this, I washed this dumpster pad, I washed, this parking lot, this and that. And I kept seeing it. And I think at that point, and I'm kind of beating around the bush here of what I actually do, but I think at that point I was starting to realize like I wasn't content with where I was at, right? I was sitting by a phone all day, and I was working long days to try to be at the top of this leaderboard, just calling people over and over again.
Sales job, right?
Yeah. So I was a sales development rep, which is like, I'm sure people, on here, there are probably some SDRs out there listening to this, and it's a grind. And, I just felt like, I'm like, why am I working so hard for someone else that, I'm literally just another cog in the machine here, if I'm gone, it's going to make no difference in their life, and just didn't really feel like I was a part of like building anything. And so that's when, we started talking about this pressure washing thing. And, the more that I started talking to my dad about it, for a few months there, he was like, oh yeah, there's definitely an opportunity there, and then eventually I was like, Dad, like,
it's our opportunity.
It's our opportunity. And if we're going to do it this year, we need to start planning right now. We need to start getting equipment. We need to start researching how to put it all together. We need to start doing more research on how to get jobs and stuff like that. And to cut to the chase, basically, what we do now is we're an exterior cleaning and maintenance provider for the multifamily industry here in Indiana. So basically, we power wash apartment buildings, complexes, their parking garages. We've got like a couple roofs that we're going to be doing next summer, which would be cool downtown. And so we've kind of settled into that, that niche right there, just the multifamily industry, which I think is really great. But the journey to get there, we pivoted 48 times, to get there. And in the midst of all of that, you're sitting there thinking like, is this the right decision? Like, is this the right thing to do? Will this be successful? And just like with change, you just have to believe it.
Yeah.
And you just have to be
from? That belief. Where's it come from?
Dude, I just think that it's faith, man. It's just like you have to have it. Like, it's not even necessarily like a spiritual faith. Like, I do sometimes feel like this was kind of a thought I had the other day, but like the way I live my life, or the best way I feel like you could live your life, is just like be grateful, and just like keep waiting for God to like place things, in your life, and bring things your way, bring opportunities, bring adventures, bring people, and I think that, we do have a God that loves us that much, that wants us to be happy, here. And it's just very simple when you think about it at the end of the day. And so, but I think it's just believing, being committed to it. I mean, you see people succeed left and right.
Yeah.
The people that just take that leap of faith and go out and do it, you don't see many of them not make it, unless, if they have the right people around them, if they have the right head on their shoulders, if they're seeking the right advice, and if they're motivated. I mean, 9 times out of 10, maybe not on their first shot,
but over a long enough time.
But over a long enough time, I've already gotten to the point in this, where it's like, dude, if we just sit in this pocket, and keep working, like, just as hard as we are right now, like, it will be successful. Yeah. And I know that just because I've met people in the industry. You get to know them. They're people just like you and I are, and we do something that they need done.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a need that they have. Like, they have to keep their tenants happy. That's their number one goal as a property management company.
Do it.
And we can help them do it, and like I said, they're people just like you and me. So, like on our last job, we literally, like on the last day, they brought pizza in for their residents because it was like day before Thanksgiving. And I went in to check in with them that morning, and she was like, "Hey, we're gonna have pizza, like at lunch if you want to like come by." And I told her, I'm like, I'm not shy, I'll be here, like just as soon as we can. And we went in there and dude, just ate lunch, with these people, and just I gotta watch my language. We just shot the crap, and just hung out, and it's just like, it's just, I think you just gotta kind of get to a point when you have something that you believe in. Like I said, you'll pivot 48 times to make it work, to make it be successful. When we started out, we were planning on washing residential roofs. Like, our goal was to be like the number one roof washing company, and that was it. Right now, I don't even know if we'll touch roofs. You know what I mean? Like we might. I mean, if an apartment complex wants it done, like, absolutely, we'll
for a small fee.
Yeah, for a small fee, we'll jump on that, of course. But and even before that, it was trash chute cleaning was what got the whole conversation started. So it's just having having an idea. You don't have to have the plan. You just have to have the idea that you believe in.
Say that for the ones in the back.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You just have to have the idea. And once you latch onto that, once you start going for it, the plan is it's fluid. Right? Especially at the beginning. Like, I hope we can get to a point, with this where it's just like gets easier to like plan, and you can see very clearly where things are headed. And I feel like we're getting there. But, the plan's always going to be fluid. So if you're waiting for the right plan, if you're waiting for the perfect way to execute it, you're not going to get that until you get down in the trenches. So I think that's the biggest holdup for a lot of people, especially even people I talk to that have great ideas. I'm like, you could totally do that if you just did it. You know,
like that. You could do it if you just did it.
if you just did it.
Just do it, then you can do it.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot of really impactful stuff that was said there. Obviously, we started off on the topic of change, and it sounds like the solution to that is just attack it, right? You said just make the decision. You know, the change is going to come one way or another, but you have a decision to make on how you want to respond to that change. If you want to view that as woe is me, victim mentality, or if you want to take that change and use it for something productive. And like we just said a minute ago, change is a prerequisite for progress. So without change, like if nothing changes, nothing changes. Right? And it sounds so simple and so reduced, but the reality is if you don't change anything about your inputs, then your outcomes are never going to change either. Right? So you even did that with the sales job. You said, okay, take an honest inventory here. I don't like the way that I'm currently living. Yeah. Therefore, if I continue living the way that I'm currently living, I'm going to probably continue to not like the way that I'm currently living, right? And it's funny because so many of us get stuck in this whirlwind where we know that that's the case. We know we're not happy. We know that we're not fulfilled, but because it's comfortable and because we fear, I was thinking about this the other day, man. How many times do we fear the change more than we fear the negative result that we already know is guaranteed if we don't change? Right? So like I have really bad asthma. Okay. So there's times where I can't sleep the entire night because I just sit there and I can't breathe and it will keep me from falling asleep. And they put me on a new medicine for it not too long ago. And I was looking through the list of the side effects and I was like, whoa, there's some serious stuff on there. Like, I don't know how I feel about trying to take this thing and it's going to make me feel X, Y, and Z about, everything else. And it's going to mess up my system. Right. And so it just struck me like, man, I'm more afraid of the possible side effects I don't even know is going to happen of making the change compared to the guaranteed negative side effects of not making a change. Yeah. And there's so many of us that are just stuck in that pocket, the bad pocket to be stuck in, not the good one. Yeah. And it's something that we've got to change, right? And it comes from, like you said, just making the decision from the onset that something has to change. And even though I already go into that change understanding there's going to be growing pains, I go into the change understanding it's not going to be easy, go into the change understanding that it might not be comfortable or convenient, but that is what is required to get myself to where I'm trying to go. And I believe in that vision of the end result enough to make it happen. Now, the other thing that you said that was really deep was you just have to believe in what it is that you're doing and not necessarily the plan, right? Yeah. Because, and I've always said this, that all God has ever asked me to do is show up and do the work. He's never asked me to come up with a 17-step plan and process on how to get somewhere. He just says, here, figure out what you want to do, approximately where you want to go. I'm going to put you in front of those circumstances and situations to create that reality for you. You have to show up and do the work. I'll bring it to you, but you have to be ready when it comes, right? And so many of us, like, if especially for those of us of faith, like, if you're a believer, let God be God. Like, does that make sense? Like, stop trying to do his job for him. You're not good at it. Like, you're not good at it. So stop trying to do it for him. Let God do God stuff and let you do human stuff. Because that's what you're going to be good at. You're going to be good at executing. You're going to be good at doing the work. You're going to be good at setting the vision. And then when he brings you the steps to execute it, then you execute it. But if you sit around trying to determine exactly what pieces to move and where and how to make that become a reality, you don't have a full vision of the board. You don't see the whole chessboard. He does. So stop trying to act like you do see the whole board and you know exactly how to do it, because you're just going to end up driving yourself crazy trying to get to some place that you don't even know how you're going to get there in the first place. When I look at my career and everything that I've been able to do, I can't even explain it to people. Like, I can't even explain how I got here. Yeah. It doesn't make sense.
You tried the other night.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense how the whole thing even came together, because it was not of my own doing or of my own design, right? But again, if you believe in what you're doing enough, then the rest of it doesn't matter. And this will be the last thing that I say on this one. I think that everybody already knows who they are. On some deep level, I think people already know who they are. I think they already know what they're supposed to be doing. You already know who you're supposed to be, but there's something that's blocking you from it, right? Like, you know who you're supposed to be. You know who you're capable of becoming, but for whatever reason, there's a limited belief there. I can't quit my job and start a business. That's not for me. That's for the other people who are smarter than me. That's for the other people who are braver than me. I can't, lose 50 pounds and get in the gym. That's for other people who have a different type of body type. It's for other people. You externalize whatever that thing is that's required for the change, right? And the reality is you already know what you're capable of. You just got to get out of your own way and start to believe in that. Okay, I'm done.
That was good.
This is about you. This is about you. It's not about me. This is about you.
Good. No,
so I want to ask you about how do you develop that belief in whatever it is that you're doing? Is that something that was intrinsic? And more importantly, how do you maintain that belief in what you're doing amongst adversity? And just as an example, I remember there were times even at Michigan where you knew you should have been in lineup to compete that weekend. I knew you should have been in lineup to compete that weekend, and yet there were still murmurs and talks amongst the gym from coaches and athletes alike saying, hey, he ain't going to be in lineup. And I'm sure business was the same thing for you. There's people saying this whole power washing business ain't going to work. There's no way you can make money doing that. I'm sure there's naysayers in every aspect of your life at some point. So how do you maintain the faith that you are doing the right thing, that you are capable of it, that it will be successful if you just show up and do the work, even amongst all the other people saying, maybe not?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you definitely kind of hit the nail on the head there where, when I first started telling people what we were doing, it was a very mixed bag of responses. It was like some people got it. Yeah. Like some people, like even Brent, the guy that I was talking to today at the gym, right? Like I started talking to him and he started even just, I'll tell you the word that comes to mind is like imagination.
Okay.
Or like creativity. Yeah. Right? Like if you can just develop that, like use your imagination with it. Yep. That's all that like that's how we've gotten where we are today. Okay. You know what I mean? Is like you said, like when you face things where you're like, oh man, I don't know if this is gonna work out, get creative.
Yeah.
Get creative. You already quit your job. You already bought all this equipment. You've already committed to this path. So you best get creative and figure out a way to make it work, right? And so that's what I think, like anytime we've experienced a holdup or felt like, things weren't going the way that we wanted them to, it was like, well, that's a problem. Mm-hmm. So let's get creative here a little bit, brainstorm, talk, and come up with a solution. And so, it's one of those things that, I'm not even sure if I'm answering your question at that point, but it's been huge for us.
No, I mean, that's important though, because here's the reality. And I've experienced this even today, as in last week, I've experienced this. We say stuff like that, and I think that we don't always conceptualize how real that is. Like, oh, be a problem solver. You found a problem. Now go figure out a solution for it. It sounds so simple, and the reality is, I think most of what makes successful people successful is not that they have some incredible strategy that nobody else has thought of. It's that they never don't do the basics. Mm-hmm. They always follow through on the basics. So if you encounter a problem, figure out a solution. Mm-hmm. And I'm amazed by how many times I feel like I'm a relatively high-performing individual, good work ethic, all the other things, and I'll come up against a problem at work, and my first response, maybe not my first response, but my second or third response after I've tried like the basics of trying to fix the problem is like, forget it, we'll figure something else out. Let's do it tomorrow, or let's figure out another way to do it. We don't have to do this, let's find a way around it, instead of just solving the problem. And like you said, getting creative enough to find that solution. But like I said, most of us, we know what to do, but there's a gap between knowing what to do and doing it.
Mm-hmm. And I'll add on to that too, because I think another thing that like speaks kind of to what you're talking about earlier, with just like being committed, like how do you know that this is going to be successful, and like there's been so much work that we've done this summer that has amounted to nothing.
Yeah.
Most of what we've done, and I'll just tell this to be real, with the folks here, of just like what's gotten us to where we're at now. Like I feel pretty good about next year and the year after that and the year after that, just from where we're at right now. But what's actually gotten us to where we're at right now is maybe a combined like one day's worth of work. You know what I mean? Like if you tally up like the hours spent on the right things, they happen to be the right things, and it's because we were shooting our shots everywhere we could, trying to make this work. right? So I went door knocking, right? And for probably a solid month, I was waking up, and then I did door hangers at the same time. So I was waking up at 6 a.m., like as soon as it got bright outside. And, I was just this weird dude walking around these neighborhoods, like going up to these houses. You got the dog barking at you like 6 a.m. You're
Bowl
like,
in the backyard.
you're like, oh man, these people, if they call me, it's going to be because I woke them up this morning. And, like we did so much work and tried so many different things in an effort to make it successful. And what actually has brought us the most success was like one email that my dad sent. My dad stumbles on this kind of stuff, and it blows my mind because, he's got a very different approach to things than I do, which it's good. It was something that we had to learn about each other at the beginning of this, but he's a little bit more laid back, right? He's yeah, he's a little bit more laid back, and I, especially when we got going, was just so far on that end of the spectrum of like, we have to make this work.
Right.
And so I'm waking up at like 5:45, 6 o'clock every day this summer, most of the time with nothing to do.
Okay.
I just felt like I needed to be up to do that. And I've weaned off of that a little bit, since, because it's like, I got to this point where I'm like, I'm driving myself crazy because like I'm giving myself like all of this time, and then I don't really have anything to be productive towards. It's what it felt like, right? It's what it felt like at the time. But now I look back and it's like, yeah, it's everything that didn't work that's got us to where we're at now. And like I said, it was like my dad emailed this lady about the Indiana Apartment Association, and because she was on the board of directors for it, and she emails back, and we were just trying to learn more about it. And, this lady works at a Valley Trash company, and so they work with, basically the same market that we do. And she's like, yeah, I'd love to, tell you more. And, like, also, how would you feel about a partnership? And it is, dude. It's absolutely nuts, and like we're working on that with them right now. It's something that's still up in the air. I don't know if it's going to work out. I hope it does.
No.
But I mean, it'd be great things. I don't know if it's going to work out, but we're working on something very productive, in my opinion. Whether or not it works out, we're learning a lot. And, then another one is I just walked into like a leasing office. Okay. And, started talking to them. And then this property manager put me in touch with the regional, for the area. So she oversees all the properties in the area. And she was like, yeah, can you also get us quotes on these 6 properties? And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, that's great. And now, me and this lady have a great relationship, and it's just like, even that right there, I mean, that's 2 months of work, lined up, because these are massive apartments and stuff. And so it's just a lot of luck, it feels like, but it's a lot of hard work that kind of gets you to those, to that point where you stumble upon the right things.
Yeah. Well, okay. I think that the lesson to take from that is, and I say this all the time to people, say yes and figure the rest out later. Like, just do stuff. Just do stuff. I look back on my entire journey, and there were plenty of people, even within the organization that I'm working with, that said, you're doing too much, you need to slow down. You're doing too much, you're going to burn yourself out. They're putting their limitations on me, right? They're projecting their own self-imposed limitations on me, saying, I'm going to burn out. I'm doing too... First of all, you don't know me. Second of all, that's how you learn. That's how you get the skill sets. That's how you make the relationships. That's how you figure out what direction you want to go in. But if you just sit still, again, going back to trying to think of the perfect plan before you set anything in motion, you can't steer a car that's sitting still.
Yeah.
You can sit there and crank the wheel all day long. You're not going anywhere, right? And so a lot of people have this resistance to it, and they say, well, I got to stay focused on this. That's outside of my wheelhouse. This is, beneath me, this type of work, all this random stuff, trying to figure it out. I don't want to go through that. You broke. You gotta do something.
Yeah.
You have to do something, right? If you have and I'm using that in a comedic effect, but if you're not where you want to be financially, fulfillment, happiness, relationship, like whatever it is, if you're not if you're not where you want to be, sitting still and thinking is not necessarily the way that's going to fix it. Sitting still for enough time to think and then act. That's what you think for the purpose of acting. You don't think for the sake of thinking. You think for the sake of acting on what you thought about, right? So try a lot of stuff, and then eventually you will fail your way into that pocket of success. But you're not going to know where the boundaries are of where success is and where failure is until you just try it all, right? So I think that's a big lesson. Now, you didn't answer my question, though.
Okay.
And you're not a politician, so I'm not going to let you get away with that. How do we keep the belief under the negative opinions of other people? You don't deserve to be in lineup. I'm better than you. You should be out of lineup. I think you fell in your routines and you shouldn't be in lineup. How do you keep the belief that you should and that you're going to perform well when you are in there? Or your business, you can't make any money power washing. This is a crazy idea that you've got. How do you keep the vision and the faith under the stress and the strain of all those other opinions?
I'm going to make you do something that you told me you didn't want to do. And you're going to have to do a little bit more editing. Yeah.
Bleep yourself. Bleep yourself. Bleep yourself. I don't want to pay somebody to edit this. Just cut it out. You know what I'm saying? Just go, them.
That's exactly it.
There you go.
That's exactly it. I mean, straight up. Like, I'll say that 10 times over. You know?
Without saying it.
There
you go.
You know? But dude, no, that's seriously it. I mean, you just have to, like, you know, especially like I said at the beginning of this journey, dude, when I'm sitting here taking a leap of faith, I'm trying to be confident.
Yep.
You know, even when we're like in a spot where, you know, even we're, you know, there are times where I'm like, man, we're really not in a good spot right now.
Yep.
Not where we want to be. And then you run into people you haven't seen for 2 years.
Yeah.
And they're asking, "Oh, I saw you, you know, just how's it going?" You know, and it's like you gotta still just kind of and eventually I got to the point where I was like, I don't feel like I need to try to convince anybody right now.
Yeah.
You know,
That's big.
2 months into this thing,
That's big.
3 months in,
Yeah.
I don't have to convince them of anything. I don't have to tell them anything. I can say good.
Yep. Full sentence.
Yeah, and if you want more out of me, like if you really want to know and you're curious, which I have a lot of friends that were, you know what I mean, that genuinely wanted to know, I'd be more than happy to talk to them, you know, have a genuine conversation about where things were at. But, you know, I remember going to Jake's wedding, and that was that in July? It was like in July or something. So it was like 2 months into this thing, and yeah, I mean, especially with something like pressure washing, where it's blue collar, you know, and you know, it's not rocket science. Like anybody can do it, honestly. Like anybody can do it. And so, you know, like I said, there's a mixed bag of responses to that, and I think a lot of people just discredit it, you know, kind of right off the bat, you know, and that was something. I'm glad you asked that question, because that's something that I had to struggle through. You know, as a person, you know, and as a business owner, like at the beginning, like it's not something that, you know, I didn't have this attitude off the bat.
6 months ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, like 6 months ago, it was tough, man. It was, you know, but then, I mean, at the end of the day, like it's your life, you know, like it's your life. And if you're going to let the opinions of others dictate your reality, you know, like if you're not happy and you don't want to make a change because you're worried about the possible outcomes, what other people may think, you know, like let them draw their own conclusions of you and let them be wrong, you know, and let time tell the story. And you know, I mean, it's just like you have to get to that point, I feel like, and in order to then just be able to like focus on the task at hand. You know what I mean? Like the opinions of others are irrelevant.
Yeah.
You know, they really are. Yeah. Like at the end of the day, what's super relevant is your business and your life, you know, your livelihood and your happiness, and so like that's where you got to just place your energy, not in the opinions of others, because man, I spent some time there and I don't want to go back.
Yeah.
Screw that. That sucks.
Yeah, I mean, you can't take other people's opinions to the bank. You can't pay rent with other people's opinions. You can't write a check with other people's opinions. And I think that so many people, like you said, they get so caught up in it that, the reality is a lot of people do things not because they really want to do them, but because they think that it's going to make other people impressed at what they're doing. Like most people who start a business, they're doing that for other people, not for themselves. The thing that I think is so cool about your story of how you did this was I went to visit him in Grand Rapids, Michigan. That's where he was living before he moved back to Indy. And you still had the sales job at this time. And we literally were in his apartment complex. We walk by the trash chute and he starts telling me this whole idea. This is like 2 years ago. And he's telling me, dude, you have no idea how many of these apartment complexes have trash chutes like this. We could clean them. They all need them. It's a value add to the property management company. It's going to be phenomenal. And like, you were really into it, right? And you just didn't it's not a glamorous business, right? You weren't the one that's like, oh, I'm going to go be a speaker and stand on stage and get clapped, with a bunch of people, people clapping for you. But you picked something that you genuinely were interested in. And I think that shows in your ability to not necessarily put your worth of the business in what other people think about it, but the worth of the business in the way that you feel about it and the way that the place that that it's going, right? Yeah. So I think that's a really, really amazing thing when you can actually believe in something that much, and it's a pure belief, and it's not, something that you make up for other people. So I love that answer. Let me ask you about how did you handle what I call PTSD, post-traumatic sports disorder? I'm interested. I'm interested in that because I feel like I handled it. I had an identity crisis. My midlife crisis hit about a quarter century too early, and it was super difficult for me to figure out what am I gonna who am I in a very real sense. I feel like my entire identity had been based around gymnastics. Like I am an athlete. And that's what it was. And I didn't necessarily define myself based on my intentions, my values, my spirit, who I am as a person. I valued myself based on who I was as an athlete. And that whole identity crisis that struck me after college, and this is applicable to anybody who's transitioning out of one phase of your life, right? If you're transitioning out of college, if you are transitioning out of your first business, a failed business, a successful business, if you're transitioning out of parenthood, the kids have left, whatever it is, whenever you have a big transition moment, you have that phase where you're like, wait, that's who I've been for the past X number of years. So how did you handle that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when I first, my last year was COVID, right? So it kind of got cut short to right before Big Tens and NCs and everything. And, that was tough. And, but I think partly mine was delayed because we had COVID and everything was shut down. Yeah. I cared more about not being able to see friends, family, not being able to go out, get food, not being able to go to a sporting event, not being able to just live life. Yeah. So I think that was where my, head was at initially. And then it was kind of once things started to open up again is when I started to feel it a little bit more. And so I think I just dove head first into work. Okay. When I went to work for, Zoom Info, I was top performer first month on the job, and then they promoted me, offered me a promotion to be on the
You're throwing shade today.
Yeah, look.
You're dropping names too. It wasn't the company, it was
well, all right, it's the company from here on out.
Get me sued.
Yeah, I know. Well, hopefully this doesn't track, and get 5 million views. I mean, even at that point, I'd be all right. I don't care. But, I was offered this promotion to our UK team, which meant that then I was waking up. My day started at 3 a.m. Yeah. So my work day was 3 to noon. And you know me, I can't just roll out of bed and get straight to work. So I was waking up at least 2 a.m., every day, and then working until still probably 2 o'clock, in the afternoon. And so then was top performer again that month. Then I got offered another promotion to start this new like division, and it's just so many things. Like I dove headfirst into that, and that kept me like occupied for a while. And then I think my next thing was to, partly to start this business. I was like, oh, that'll be the next thing for me, and it's weird because it's like I still like I don't feel like that was the fix, to it because we're athletes, man. Like we like there's just something about like I don't even know how to describe it. I'm at a loss for words, but there's something about just like this drive to like use my body, right? And to do things and to like perfect a craft, right? Or an art, like we did with gymnastics. Yeah.
So this is just another question for you. What was the difference between what you were doing at the company versus starting your own business? Because it sounds like you put all of your energy, effort, and attention, and you really poured into both of those, and you were very successful from an external standpoint at ZoomInfo, right? Because you were getting the company, you were getting promotions, and you were more promotions, you were advanced to leadership positions. So it seemed like you poured into that. That was successful, but something must have still been missing. Obviously, you still weren't fulfilled in some way or form, because then you left, started your own business, and now you're pouring, I would assume, just as much, if not more, energy and effort into this, but it seems like you're a lot happier now. So what's the difference? What's the distinguishing variable between those two situations?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely that element of doing it for me, and doing it for like those that I love and care about, and those that, have a family someday, 100% for them, and but I think even more so, like what I was like missing, beforehand was this sense of like me as like I didn't feel like my efforts, my what I brought to the table was like necessarily valued, right? Like I didn't feel like I was making a difference there. I was trying, but then you got people in leadership positions, and there's so much going on in a company like that that it's really hard to feel like you are part of building that. And so like I even talked to like we've got two guys coming onto the team next year to help us, and it's like I talked to them, and like they're excited.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're gonna be out like washing every day, and I'll be right there with them.
Yeah.
But they're excited. I was talking to one of them on the phone the other day. He's like, dude, he's like, I can't wait.
That's awesome.
Like I just can't wait.
Awesome.
And I know what it is for him. It's because he knows like that he's part of the blood, sweat, and tears that are gonna make this thing successful someday. And that's what I feel like I love. Is feeling like you're down in the trenches in something and trying to make it great. And I was at a company that was already great. They are it's a fantastic company, great product, great people. It's just like for me, like you said, there was that element missing. And so there's just a lot of excitement for me around like building something and being able to form my own team with people I love being around. Like people I enjoy, and having a good time with it. And back to the PTSD now, like you hear me talking about it like all the time of like, dude, I gotta figure I tried golf. Became a very mediocre golfer.
Well, you know why they call it golf, right?
Why?
Because crap was already taken.
Yeah, it's just because you don't have a golfer's physique, man. That ain't gonna work out too well for you. You can maybe do long drive. Yeah, you can maybe do some long drive stuff, but but it was even like that. That was I still enjoy golfing. I still do it, but again, it's like I'm still on that journey of finding what's next in terms of like what I can be really good at. And one thing I'm even thankful for now, like I'll just be totally candid, like we're in our off season now. So we're obviously planning and getting ready for next year. and there's a lot that goes behind that. And I was telling you that we're gonna try to keep like really good record of everything we're doing, all the research we're putting in, how we're doing it, so that way we can create, you know, an SOP, or that way we can even just connect with other pressure washers, you know, in the community and nationally. They've got forums and stuff. Like it's pretty tight knit community, and you know, being able to become those people that can answer questions for people and stuff like that. So we've got a lot that we're wanting to do here, but you know, it's been really nice because, dude, if I'm just focused,
yeah,
I can get that work done in 3-4 hours a day.
yeah,
With me and my dad combined, like, dude, we can knock that out,
yeah,
and be probably ahead of schedule, you know, with where we need to be. And so what that's done is given me a lot of time to kind of sit here and ponder this.
yeah.
You know, like it's something I recognize. There's been this little emptiness, you know, for a while, and for a while I was freaking out about it,
No.
and now I'm kind of more at the point where I'm like, I'm excited to figure this out. You know what I mean? Like I'm excited to figure out like what I'm gonna fall in love with next. I know that there's something out there,
Yeah.
you know, that I'm gonna fall in love with all over again, just like I did with gymnastics.
Yep.
It's just, you know, like, you know me, we got a drum set in the basement. Dude, I play that for like an hour a day probably, and I'm no good, but you know, I enjoy doing it. I love music, and that's, you know, just something. I don't think that's going to be the next thing that I get good at, but you know, I'm excited to figure out what it is, man, because I know that there's something. I told you I'm getting a dirt bike,
Yep.
you know, this winter, and on my weekends next summer, I'm planning on just going out and riding, and you know, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
You know, we'll see how it goes, man. I mean, I did it when I was younger, and then got to a point with gymnastics where my parents were like, "You're not getting on a dirt bike." Yeah, you ain't doing that. But I really enjoyed it as a kid, and you know, and so again, like one of the guys that's going to be joining us, he did motocross for 10 years. You know, and so I think we're gonna wash all week, and then we're gonna load up the truck, and you know, we're gonna go ride. And so you know, I think it's just a journey, and for anybody that's going through something like that, you know, right now, I mean, I'd encourage you to just kind of look at it as like, you know, like I'm 24, dude.
No.
You know, like there's so much time.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much time, and I think that, you know, for a period of time in my life, I wanted to be so intentional with everything that it really distracted me from just like enjoying where I'm at. You know, so right now I'd say, dude, I'm super happy just because I'm just like content with like being in the midst of that.
Yeah.
You know, figuring things out, and not stressing it. I don't think stress helps with a lot of things like that. You know what I mean? Like there's good stress and there's bad stress, and I think that that's one of those types of things that can put you in a bad stress situation that then kind of like paralyzes you, you know, and keeps you bogged down. So, man, I haven't figured it out. I can tell you it wasn't, you know, I wasn't graceful with that that transition at the beginning, but now I've kind of got, you know, just this different outlook on it.
Yeah. I mean, I think a couple of things there. The first thing is you got to do that analysis for yourself, right? Like if there's something that you feel like is missing in your life, whether it's in your career, your relationship, whatever that aspect of your life may be, you have to do that analysis. You can't go to somebody and say, hey, like I can't go to you and say, Mitch, what's missing in my life? You're not going to know, right?
I've tried that with people.
right. It's not
never know.
Nobody's going to know except for you. So you have to take the time, and you were able to identify, okay, it's the ability to feel like I'm working on something that I can really build. It's the ability to feel like I'm working with people that I want to work with, be part of the come up of something, not just making something that's already gotten to that level of success even greater. There were these variables that you were able to identify. Here's what's missing, and then you can go recreate that elsewhere. Now, here's what I'll caution you for. You're going to have to swap some of those variables out. What I mean by that is your desire for the variable of being able to build something from the ground up came at the cost of the variable of security, right? That was the exchange.
Yeah.
So don't be surprised when you have to make that exchange, right? There's going to be a price for it. But you have the ability to do that analysis, figure out what's missing for you personally, and then decide, is it worth the cost to go get what I feel like I'm missing? Am I going to be happier there? And you might not know until you do it, and that's okay, because for the most part, those decisions can be, you can go back at some point or another. Okay, so that's one. The other two things are, I can already hear people in the comments saying one of two things. Either I'm 22, 23, 24, and I feel like I should have my life figured out by now, right? Yeah. So to that, I would say, no, you don't. And I would say, be careful who you look up to. I would say, be careful of assuming that somebody else has it all figured out. Just because you know somebody who is a 25-year-old millionaire and they drive a fancy sports car and they have a certain persona on social media, you don't know if they're driving down the road in that fancy sports car thinking about wrapping it around a telephone pole because they hate their life, or they don't have a good relationship with their parents or their kids or the people that they love. And like, you don't know. So be very cautious of just assuming that because of some sort of external image that the internal reflection of that is just as positive, because very rarely is that the case. And that takes time. Now, there's the other type of person who says, okay, you maybe work 4 hours a day right now and you got all this time to figure out, well, what's your next passion? What's your next love? I'm 45, got a wife and 2 kids and a full-time job. I don't have time for that. And to that, what I would say is set aside 15 minutes a day. Like 15 minutes a day. You can find 15 minutes a day. If you have to get up earlier, go to bed later, whatever it is, you can find that time. But I think that's so important because, like you said, without having that next love, it's just so hard to keep the motivation to go through the grind of every other aspect of life. Like, you're going to have to do things that are hard and challenging no matter what. But if you don't have that thing that you were just on fire for and you look forward to, it's tough to have any sense of balance whatsoever. So it's worth it. Invest 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day into yourself and your future and your own fulfillment. And I promise you it's going to be worth it. With that being said, we have a Big Ten championship game to get to. We're going to watch Michigan smack down Purdue to win the title, just like they absolutely smacked down Ohio State and completely humiliated them last week. I work with OSU. I love those guys. But
No, you don't.
when it comes to football, it is what it is.
You have to bleep that right there.
we cut that part out. Editors. So listen, last question for you. 16-year-old Mitch, knowing what you know now, what would you go tell him?
Keep being 16.
What does that mean?
Man, that means just keep enjoying life, right? Like, be okay with making mistakes, be okay with making the wrong choices. Now, I wouldn't necessarily look up to my 16-year-old self, but I will say I think there's this crazy thing, like you said, that the 20-year-olds, the 22-year-olds, whatever, the 30-year-olds who think they have to have life figured out, man. Oh my gosh, I just feel like that it completely, I've been there, and I feel like it just robs you of so much joy and so much of the human experience of just like being here, right? And I had that, when I was 16, and then life got real serious, and all the time in between, and you kind of lose that sense of just going about life, just trusting, that it's all gonna work out. And I think I had a very strong sense of that when I was 16. I mean, I was horsing around way too much, at that point in my life, but I think it's partly because I just like had this gut feeling deep down that it's all going to be all right. Yeah. And guess what? Like I got arrested in high school, like I was dealing pot, and I got caught for that, and I had to write about it on my college applications. I had to tell Kurt, I had to tell, and so there were like periods of times where, but even in the midst of all that, I just look at how much has happened and how it's all been all right. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm still alive, like things have happened. I've lost people, like experienced things, been through things, but I would honestly just keep being 16, keep enjoying your life, keep just going about it, trusting the process, and have fun. Have fun. Focus on fun.
I love that. I would extend that to say, just no matter what age you are, be present. No matter what age you are, no matter what stage of life you're in, no matter what phase you're in, no matter what's going on right now, just be present. Because yesterday's done and gone. And tomorrow you might get it, you might not. You don't really know. And so enjoy what you have now while you have it. And everybody can find something that they enjoy, or that they can enjoy, that they can be grateful for. Even in the toughest times, even when you were getting arrested, even when all this stuff was going on, there's something that you can even look back on that now and say, there were parts of that not only was it productive and constructive towards who I became, but there was things to be grateful for no matter what. Guys, as always, don't just watch this. Please take something from it. And please remember, you've lived through every single one of your worst days. Like, there's a lot of people out there that are going through something and they feel like they're just not going to make it. Like, they feel like it's just over. And listen to what Mitch just said. He's still alive. Nothing killed him. You've lived through every single one of your worst days, every single thing you thought you were never going to get through, every single time you thought it was over, every single time that you thought you couldn't bounce back from that circumstance or situation. You're still here. You have a 100% success rate on surviving your bad days. That's pretty good if you ask me, and I would bet on you surviving the next one. So take this information from this podcast, apply it to your life. Tell us in the comments below how you're going to use it, and don't forget, you're going to be all right. Thanks so much for watching the Adamas Project. We will see you on the next one.